Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about styling a table the way you want it to be styled. Well, in the past, how we did this is we would use float right and float left. That's not necessarily the right way to do it now. So let's demonstrate how this works. So if we look at the tables, we can see that this table, the products table, is floating to the left and the contacts table is floating to the right. That works. That's great, but there's a problem. So the problem comes when we try to resize the table. So if you see here, let me unselect it. So as I move this, look at this isn't right. So if my screen is only this wide, I don't want this table here and I want this one here. So how would I handle that? Well, one way to handle it is I'd go in here and I would say, oh, I don't want it to float right. I want it to float left. So we would do this and now it would float to the left. So if we go back and we look at the screen, we can see now that it is floating to the left. That works great. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want it to come floating over on this side here when I really need it over here. So this looks much better. And now let's go a little wider, see how this looks. Wait a minute, I didn't want that. Okay, so let's fix that. So how we would handle that is we would go in and we would say, you know what? I'm going to do a margin on the right because I don't want an indent on the left side. I want an indent on the right. And let's say it's 5 pixels. And if I put that on the product table, that's the first one. That's really all I need to put it on. Now, if we save that and we go back, now we can see we have a bit of a margin there. Let's go back and add some more. 5 is not enough, so we really need something like 15. So let's try that. So if we go back and we look at our screen, now we got 15 here. This looks much better. So how does this handle when we go down here? Not bad. I like it. This is looking good. This is looking good. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do you notice that? So this one, notice this table, it's this close to the screen or the edge of the window. And this table up here, it'll start moving, and that's because of the padding. Look at that. The padding's doing that. And wait a minute. That's not really very nice, is it? Well, let me show you how we would handle this in today's way of doing it. Instead of this float left, we would add, let's get rid of the left on both sides. And we would go up here and we would say, well, first of all, let's talk about the display. Display flex is an awesome little way of displaying. So you can display grid, you can display flex, you can display block, you can display inline. There's several ways of doing that. But let me demonstrate how just display flex works here. So if we go back, if you'll notice here on this screen, now if we go to the wide screen, the whole thing is there, but we don't have that space between. Simple solution is to add a gap. Now to rem, R means the root, and EM, so this is the size of a normal character. Let's save that, see what it does. If you'll notice here, we have a nice space. It's much bigger than the other one, but it looks a lot nicer. If you look at the big screen, and you see it side by side, it looks really nice. But wait a minute, on this narrow screen here, it's side by side. Well, there's a flex wrap. And with a flex wrap, we can turn that on and now save that, and you see it goes down here. Well, let's look at the big screen. Big screen looks the same. Now let's change some of this. Let's go down. Look, it went down and it's nice. And see how this comes here? Look at the spacing here. And watch the spacing here when we get down to here. Spacing, oh look, we got right up to it. But wait a minute, did you see a problem here? If I'm here, how do I see this data? I have no way of scrolling. How do I see that data? Okay, let's try something else here. So, if we go back to our code, and let's turn on this width of 45 rem. That's for the product table. That's this one up here. And do the width for that one. That takes care of that. But to be able to scroll, we need to turn on overflow X. Okay? So we're going to turn on overflow X to make it scrollable. So if it gets too narrow, we can actually look at it. Let's go back to the big screen. So here we are on the big screen. And if I go in here, and you'll notice it's changed, it got a little wider when I did the save. Now, over here, if I get this and I bring it down, here we go. It looks good, looks good, looks good. There's the scroll. Now, wait a minute. It's collapsing. Well, notice that it has some, it's sensitive to the size of the characters. And the table where it has percentages works. A lot of people use percentages because it's easier. So I can give 15%, 15%, 30%, and 30%. I think that's what I gave this table here on these columns. So that'll help. But this one, it's a little different. So a product, I want my product name to show. I want more space for that. In category, I want a little more space. But quantity, I don't need that much space. It's just a number. And it's usually not that large. But this is working. This looks pretty good. Let's see if we see any problems here. So this is looking good. Okay, now can I scroll and see the rest of this? Yes, I can. Okay, that works. Now, let's bring this back out and notice I have space in here. This is a good thing. So, I'm going to end this with part one. And what we talked about here is the old way of doing it using a float. So we had a float, we took that out, and we had a margin right. Remember the problem that caused? We don't want that. And this was taken care of in the app component, which is actually the whole, so this is a whole component here. This is in Angular. This is not your regular CSS and HTML. It follows those rules, but these are components. So this table is a component and this table is a component. So this is where I'm going to end on this video, and we'll pick it up on the second one. Thank you for watching.